So, Brett, I wanted to ask you, after college, you were able to connect with Bill Spaceman Lee, the famous pitcher, and get entry down to Cuba. What was that like, and how did that come about?
Yeah, so I had moved home back to LA after my years in Tucson. Had a great time in Tucson. 5 years of my life. Moved back to LA, and I was actually really kind of fascinated in starting to create a career in product placement in film and TV. I just found it really fascinating. My biggest product placement success was in the movie The Fast and the Furious, which was called Redline originally. Uh, I'm the guy who made it happen, where Paul Walker says, no, it's Vin Diesel says to Paul Walker, "You can have any brew you want as long as it's a Corona." I made that happen. But yeah, with the product placement, I realized ultimately it wasn't all that creative. It was more of a marketing job, and so I took a PA job on an MTV show called Flipped, and learned a lot. I got a lot of good on set, documentary style experience, and worked really hard on that. Kind of made my way up from PA to doing some producing, and ultimately the show got canceled, as most shows ultimately do. It didn't get picked up, and I was like, I want to do something where I have more control over my career and what I get to work on. And so had heard about the Spaceman and reached out and was able to put together a crew and go to Cuba with him.
Well, take us deeper in that. What was that experience like for you? Because everyone can't just, at that time, wasn't able to just go to Cuba.
It wasn't easy. So Bill Lee, the Spaceman, was a pitcher for the Red Sox in the Expos. Spent most of his career in Boston and started Game 7 of the '75 World Series. Gave up a big home run to Tony Perez that maybe hasn't landed yet. And then he went to Montreal and walked off the team, which was kind of what we focused on in the scripted film I did called Spaceman with Josh Duhamel. And we had a supporting actor in Spaceman who hadn't quite become a household name yet, Sterling K. Brown, who came in for an audition, which he would never do today on a low budget independent film. And I was like, that guy's got something. And he played Rodney Scott, who was the second baseman on the Expos. But yeah, Bill Lee at the time was still pitching. He was 57 years old. Today he's still pitching in his 70s. And I'm like, we got to capture this because he may not be pitching much longer. And he said, hey, if you can come to Cuba, no problem here. Like, let's go. And so he was going with a team that was on like a humanitarian sort of visa, and we piggybacked on them. And it was an adventure. I mean, we were lucky to get out of there with our tapes as we did. Years later, I got a call from this guy, and he says, hey, Brett, this is Chris. I work with the Farrelly brothers, and they're trying to go to Cuba to do this Louis Tiant documentary. Like, how the F did you get into Cuba? So I go, you got to talk to this guy, Tom, in Vancouver. He'll make it happen, da-da-da-da. And they ended up getting into Cuba and shooting the Louis Tiant thing, which like they literally could not have done without, having a way in. A few years later, I'm at a bar in Santa Monica with my brother, and Peter Farrelly's in there having some drinks. I said to the bartender, send that guy a mojito and tell him it's from the guy that got him into Cuba for his Louis Tiant documentary. So he gets the mojito, he comes over, and my brother and Pete Farrelly and I chatted it up for a good half hour or so.
That's awesome. The Farrelly brothers, the most famous filmmakers from Rhode Island. So
you had to throw that in there, huh?
Oh, yeah. They're big time from Rhode Island.
And does one of them still live there? Because I know one of them lives in Ojai.
Yeah, I think one of them, they might have a house there. I'm not sure, but that's my claim to fame with the Farrelly brothers that were from the same place.